Motivation versus discipline. This is a topic that I've been struggling with for basically all my life. Ever since I have kind of found out about the gym, getting myself involved in different hobbies, different career choices, paths. When I was a kid, I kind of started out with Forex. I went through that whole phase of going through the Forex markets and understanding it and all that stuff. It's very much Mickey Mouse when I kind of look back at it. With rose-tinted glasses, I guess it could have seemed like it was worth my time, but at the same time, kind of looking back at it logically, it wasn't really the best usage of my years back in high school. Regardless of that fact, I kind of wanted to talk about the sort of struggle that I am currently dealing with. Discipline versus motivation. So to kind of set the stage first, I guess to kind of, you know, first of all, just give the definitions and the context. For the definition of discipline, as I'm sure many of you know, is basically the ability to do something uh, without a second thought, like it's a part of your life, right? One example I can kind of give about this is the gym. Uh, you go to the gym at a certain time, at a certain place, every single day, or for a certain, within a certain amount of days, right? Like 5 days out of the week, 6 days out of the week, doesn't matter, right? Maybe every single day out of the week. But regardless of the fact, right, even if you're tired, even if you had a terrible day at work or whatever the case may be, right, those factors don't come into you don't include those factors into your discipline, right, because it's a part of your schedule, it's a part of your life. Motivation, on the other hand, is all about, you know, it's like those 11 a.m. feelings, right? 11 a.m. reels or whatever you want to say, right? Like those 3 a.m. reels or 3 a.m. motivation where you're like you feel unstoppable, right? Where you feel like you can do anything. That's motivation. And I guess an example of motivation would be, you're motivated to I don't maybe you're motivated to play a new instrument, play guitar, play piano, something like that, right? Like there's a newfound motivation. There's a newfound motivation to start something, to pick up something that maybe you've done before or maybe you haven't done before, whatever the case may be. But regardless, it's newfound, right? It's something that was not part of your schedule before. So something that I'm kind of struggling with, and to be honest, I don't think I really have much advice. It's more of this is kind of similar to the last video where I guess I more so rant about it. I um I tend to struggle a lot with those two concepts. Particularly something that I think is very important to me is and was at the time as well was the gym. Um and I always with the gym I always tended to make it a discipline. When I was a kid, when I was a when I say I was a kid, when I was in high school, I did a lot of, lot of gym work. I used to wake up at 5 a.m. in the morning and do like calisthenic workouts, and then I would go to the gym after school. And then I would, go to the gym like twice on the weekends or something like that. Um, and I was extremely fit, but I was also extremely skinny because I just didn't eat as much as I didn't really understand the notion of bulking or anything like that. But yeah, I just went to the gym like almost obsessively. So it went from discipline to obsessiveness, and it kind of, after a bit, once I started, getting ready for college and all that stuff, I completely lost that discipline. And I guess you could say motivation to even go to the gym. I burnt myself out, simply put. And I always struggle with that, you know. Um, for those of you that don't know, for context, my characteristic, and I see this as a weakness. You can see it as a strength. I think there's strengths and weaknesses to every characteristic, but my characteristic is I'm very very much short term. Uh, I tend to my brain tends to kind of lean more towards the short term effects versus the long term effects. So I can have a really good short term stint in the gym, and then after maybe a couple of months or so, I completely lose that, and I go back to square one. It can sometimes be a blessing and a curse to have that. Um, Seeing the short term effects, like for me, I'm very much like short term planning. Um, like a couple of months, maybe up to a year, right? If that. My short-term planning, it comes in handy, actually, especially when I'm planning big trips or, things that I want to do in the year or within the next couple of months or something like that. And I get everything set up pretty quickly and am able to just roll with it, right? Um, but yeah, anyways, regardless of that fact, to kind of give some context, I completely gave up on the gym, especially when I was going into college, and ended up not really being that disciplined with it anymore. And ever since then, I think I've kind of lost that passion and for the gym, and every single time that I try to kind of every single time I think about the gym, it's like it kind of uh, it's like a bad omen for me. It's like I don't want to go to the gym, really, simply put. And it's like I need motivation to go to the gym. You know, I can't discipline myself, I guess, or I have this mental block, really, of essentially saying to myself that I can't do it because I just don't have the motivation. When in reality, it's supposed to be less motivation and probably more discipline. But I always blur those lines, right? And I'm not sure how many of you have dealt with a similar situation, but in my situation, I have definitely had to deal with the fact that I just always need motivation for something to do anything, really. And I kind of hate it, to be honest with you. I really do. Um, because something like the gym or something like playing the guitar or just any of my other hobbies that I have. I mean, I have a plethora of hobbies, you know. Um, of course, video games is one of them. Playing guitar is another one. I actually used to play the piano a little bit when I was a kid as well, like back in middle school, high school, whatever. Um, I kind of lost that. I guess I lost the motivation for that as well. Um, I also have, I have this sort of hobby of just tinkering with electronics and stuff, coding and stuff like that. Coding is more my job now, I would say, but, it also used to be a hobby at some point. But anyways, without going down the long laundry list of all my hobbies, um, unfortunately, I can't seem to balance all of them, and a lot of it is really just due to the fact that I can't really find the motivation. It's not that I don't have the time; I can definitely make the time for it, but it's just that I don't have the motivation to do it. And I don't create it as part of my discipline because the minute that I make things, my hobbies, the minute that I make my hobbies and my interests sort of like part of a schedule, part of a plan, you know, like the gym, for example, right? Used to be a hobby of mine, used to be something that I deeply loved, and now is something that I just don't have a passion for anymore, which I think is, you know, it's hard kind of getting through that. I'm trying to figure out a way to get around that because um, the gym is, number one, health. It's good for your health, of course, to go to the gym. But number two is, you know, I kind of compare myself now to how I was back then, where I just absolutely loved the gym and I obsessed over it. And I went almost every single day, you know, and it's kind of like I just want to go back to that stage, go back to back then, you know. But anyways, yeah, it's something that I'm kind of I'm dealing with, but I always kind of just lose the motivation to do anything. Um, and I think the reason why that this kind of I decided to make a video on this is because I kind of recently did some reflection, and I find myself kind of having these sort of moments where I have this schedule. I have this discipline. So like my schedule consists of, work. In between work, I'm like doing quant stuff. Like I'm studying for quant. I'm studying for the interviews. I'm doing math in between, right? All the math basics, the fundamentals that I need to know in quant and stuff like that. Math has overall been, one of my stronger subjects, so I like math more anyways, and I don't mind doing it. But I think it's really the notion of, I have all of that stuff that I'm doing, and then by the end of the day, I'm not really doing much else. And to be honest with you, there are days where I'm just not even doing my quant related studies at all. And I kind of just do the bare minimum. I work uh, about what, 40 hours a week, something like that. So honestly, not that much, in my opinion, at least. I guess my benchmark was what I used to work before, which was more than 40 hours. I mean, I was averaging maybe like closer to 60 or 70. Um, but yeah, like I don't work as much as I used to before. I have a lot more time. My weekends, I mean, I don't know. My weekends maybe consist of meal prepping, um, going out for a walk, playing video games, but I always have this kind of like I feel like I should be doing something else. And I try to make it a discipline of mine to go to the gym or to not just do the quant studies, but go above and beyond, right? And do more. And then also balancing all of my other hobbies and that I want to keep up with. Um, but that in and of itself is just so difficult. I don't think like I said, this is more of a rant than an advice video. I don't think I really have any sort of advice towards this. To be honest, I'm still working through it myself. Um, it's just tough, realistically. Like with the amount of interest that I have, the amount of things that I'm trying to accomplish. Sometimes I feel like I'm just running out of time. And then I get to these stints where I'm just not doing anything, and I just end up doing the bare minimum for days on end, sometimes a week, up to a week, maybe up to 2 weeks. And I really hate that. I really do, because that's not something that I want, out of my life. I want to do more than the bare minimum. Um, back when I was, like I said, back when I was in high school, I put in 110% effort every single day. And what I mean by that is all I did was be productive. Everything that I did every single day was be productive. You know, if I wasn't at school, I was working. If I wasn't working, I was studying. And if I wasn't studying, I was doing something else, whether it be one of my hobbies or I was streaming or, working on some sort of side project that I have that's like, you know, not related to anything else, right? That I'm doing else in my life. Like maybe it was like a coding project, or maybe it was, you know, uh, uh, making videos for my old YouTube channel or something like that. You know what I mean? Like I was always just doing something. And now I kind of like find it hard to really do anything, to be honest with you. Um, because there are days where I'm just like I have this I mean, I consider it a mental blockade, but I have this sort of mental blockade where I'm done with work and all I want to do is just rot. Like all I want to do is just go in bed, sleep for the next 12 hours, you know. Um and that's really all it is. And the problem is the problem is with that mindset is that I know for a fact that I am nowhere near where I want to be. I have a specific place that I want to be in, you know, both career wise, geographically. So I know for a fact that right now where I'm at in terms of just, you know, careers, you know, where I live currently, even the relationship, right? Trying to accelerate, trying to improve the relationship, get closer to my girlfriend and stuff. I'm just not there. So it's like this guilty feeling for myself, right? Where I feel like if I'm not doing something, then I'm just, you know, I'm setting myself back like I don't know, however many years or months or whatever you want to say, right? And I mean, it all just kind of boils down to, do I have the discipline? Do I have the motivation to do this? You know? So I guess you know, this is me more so thinking out loud, and I apologize. I've already been kind of rambling for about 17 minutes now at this point. Um, but you know, I think this is me just kind of figuring it out, thinking about it out loud, trying to figure out what I want to do with my life, what I'm trying to achieve. You know, I think like when it comes to discipline, um, it gets hard, to be honest with you. Like I'm really trying to find a way to discipline myself to go to the gym, to do the studying, right? Just to do like create a new standard, make that my bare minimum, essentially, right? And then find the motivation to just continue, to keep going and finding newfound motivation for things that, you know, interest me or maybe will interest me. You know, something that kind of came up recently, I would say, is you know, for those of you that don't know, I used to live in Florida for a bit. Um, and you know, back in Florida, even when I was, you know, because I was also born in North Jersey, New Jersey, and you know, back in Jersey, I used to also just go out on hikes, bike rides, and stuff. I was just a very like outdoorsy kid, I would say. Same thing in Florida. I mean, you know, I would stay inside for the most part, of course, because of how hot it was, like especially on certain summer days. But you know, I would also go outside, right? So I was kind of a mix of both. And I think recently I found myself being more of a homebody, which I don't know if I really like. You know, I there are times where I like being a homebody, and then there are other times where I'm just like, man, I should go outside. I should go do something. You know, I should go interact with people. That's what I love to do. I love talking to people. You know, I did that when I was in Philly the other week, right? I just talked to some random guy, and I was like, hey, what's going on? Like, you know, what's your opinion on Philly? Like, you know, how's your life been? Like, just shit like that. You know what I mean? Like, just having human interaction with someone, right? And just like not being so cooped up in your own world. You know what I mean? I think that makes for a sane human being, right? You can never go multiple days without like at least just talking to someone like random about your day, right? Um, but yeah, I guess recently I find myself to be more of a homebody, but something that kind of interested me recently was hunting. And back in Florida, I like we used to go to the shooting range and stuff like that. And back in Jersey, of course, like I didn't really do hunting that much in Jersey, but I did a lot of hiking and whatnot. Florida, I did some more fishing, if anything, and went to the shooting range. So hunting was something that I guess was in the cards for me at some point, just because of all of my other things that I was interested in. But yeah, I recently got interested in hunting, and I've been looking at getting a hunting rifle and maybe just going out during a hunting season, prime hunting season, and learning, right? Getting my permit and stuff. And I think that's something that would just would just help me out. It's a new motivation. It's a newfound motivation. Exploring and figuring out what I want in my life, what I want to experience in my life, you know. But again, it all just kind of stems and comes down to if I have that motivation, if I, if I'm not in the mindset of just giving up and essentially being nothing but a hermit, and just rotting in bed all day, you know. Um, so, anyways, I think that's kind of what I wanted to get out there. I think that's all I can really yap about, to be honest with you. My point being for this entire video really is like I said, more of a rant, more of just me thinking out loud. Um, I really do struggle with discipline and motivation. You know, on the surface, I really try to help other people, and like I try to help other people with their qualms about discipline, right? Them going to the gym. Like for example, my brother, he had a stint where um he had a stint where he was like multiple months, almost a couple of years really, just going to the gym constantly, and then one day he was like, I need someone to go to the gym with. And I was like, yeah, I got you, to kind of help with the motivation aspect, right? And stuff, and kind of reignite that discipline for him to go to the gym. And I helped him out, right? Um, and it's the same thing with motivation, right? Like, I wouldn't say I'm a motivational speaker by any chance or by really any means, but I do try to help motivate some people, people who are close in my life, and I try to help friends and family, if they're going through that sort of trouble where they're just not finding motivation to do something. But I think I find it hard for myself to find motivation, right? And that all kind of stems from just me not opening up and talking to people about it, to be honest with you. Like I don't go up to my friends and family and say like I've just lost motivation completely, and I don't know what the hell to do, because like I don't know. I guess there's a sort of connotation to that of like, if I have helped you try to gather motivation and discipline and help you through your tough times, like if I all of a sudden come to you for my tough times, it's like, how does that make me credible in me helping you? I guess that's kind of the way that I think about it, you know. Um, like I don't want to be the guy that burdens everyone else with all my shit, you know. Um, so I guess that's kind of where it stems from. But anyways, that's a little bit too deep into it. What I will say is, I'm still working through it, still trying to find my motivation to really do the things that I want to do. Um, and trying to discipline myself into going back into the gym, going back into doing all my quant learning stuff, all my study plan that I have and everything else, in between. So, but thanks for listening. I apologize for this video to being kind of really, it was kind of a mess. To be honest with you, I guess if this is your first video that you've watched of me, compared to my other videos, I use this channel as a sort of a form of just being able to discuss and talk about my, what I feel, advice, life experience, stuff like that. Um, I, in no way, shape, or form am I using this as kind of like, supposed to be like a motivational channel or something like that. I guess you could say to some degree this is like a therapy channel for me, where I can just kind of like, I can have video logs of like me complaining about my life and saying like, wow, this shit was ass, or like going back and like having like a sort of reflection on my life, right? And watching those video logs, and I can watch it back and be like, yeah, that wasn't really as bad as I thought it was in the moment. Or, like, yeah, you know what? Like what I said here makes sense. I should really follow through that you know, with that sort of mindset, something like that. That's kind of what I use this channel for, to be honest with you. So, um, regardless, thanks for listening if you've made it this far, and till the next one.